Hi, my name is Suzanne Dean. You may have seen my videos before or heard my name before on YouTube. I have a series of videos on YouTube and also have a classroom online where I teach Copic coloring. I've done that for almost over 5 years teaching and kind of traveled around and did that for 3.5 years as well. Now I'm making some coloring videos for your next stamp. They have a cute line of Darling Divas. It's a newer collection of girls that are fun to color. They have great hair, great clothing, all different styles, so you might want to check those out. I love stamps that have great coloring areas on them, larger areas to color and kind of go a little crazy with your techniques if you want to try something new. And I love coloring hair, so the hair on these girls is really fun to color, but don't let it intimidate you. There's easy ways to do this. But for today, we're going to concentrate on the skin and dress on this particular stamp, which is called Summer. If you haven't tried alcohol markers yet and you're wanting to try them, make sure that you're stamping your images with a good ink. It needs to be a dye ink, or else the Copics or other alcohol marker ink will actually bleed and create quite a mess. I use Memento. It doesn't mean you have to, but it's just a good ink. Comes in many colors, so if you don't want to stamp in black, they have multiple colors. And I like it because I can stamp and immediately color. It dries pretty quickly, so you don't have to worry about drying time or using a heat gun to dry your ink. Alcohol markers, there's lots of different types. I use Copics and I use the Shinhan Touch Twin as well. They work together. Alcohol ink is pretty similar. You may find other brands in different colors and things, but they all tend to work pretty well together. The beauty of Copic's, any alcohol marker actually, is that the ink dries pretty quickly. So because it has alcohol in it, you can put down your color, it dries quickly, and you can keep layering. Whereas a water-based marker, as you put layer upon layer, the water will seep into your paper and start ripping it, making holes and other non-delightful things on your images. So if you're using something, a water-based marker, like say a distress marker, just beware that you can't layer as heavily as you can with an alcohol marker. Two totally different types of markers and inks. My little girl colored up. I already did one for purposes of the video. I use mostly Copics on her. Like I said, if you have a mix of other markers, that's fine too. The technique is the same no matter what the alcohol marker brand is. So however you learn for your coloring or your techniques, it doesn't matter if you're using a different brand of markers or a different color. Tip when coloring, try to do your lightest colors last. That way, if any dark colors seep into wherever your lighter colors may be, which on her it would be her skin and her ribbon sash bow, if anything seeped into that, a dark color, I could use my colorless blender and move that. If I did my lightest colors first and then I got dark into the light color, I couldn't remove that. It would be ruined. And a little cheat that I will tell you about, and I tell all my classes this, is if something happens and say you got some dark color into her face and you've already colored most of the image and you don't want to start over, trust me, I've been there, done it many times, stamp it again a second time, color just the area that you've messed up on, cut it out really well, and then glue it with a wet glue on top of your image. And I swear no one will ever know. It's a cheat that I've taught for years. It saves you lots of time. Unless you want to recolor the whole image, that's up to you, but usually I don't have time for that. Once I've colored it, I want to finish it. So if you cut real closely, you can take a marker and kind of outline the edge of your cutout if you've lost any of the black line and paste it on top. So a little cheat for you early in the game in case that happens to you. But always try to do your light colors last. It will help you in the end. If you're new to the Copics and you're looking for a paper to use, there's many different types of paper and everyone loves a different type from what someone else might like. So try, a few different samples of papers and see what fits you best and then use it. It doesn't matter what I use or anybody else uses. You have to use what makes you the happiest, what works best for you. I happen to use the Cryogen Iridescent. I've used it for years. I find that it blends really, really well. and holds a lot of color. So especially if you're a heavy-handed colorer, or you're just starting out, it is a good paper to try because it can hold a little bit more ink. The thinner the paper, the less ink it's going to hold. So this is a pretty good medium weight paper, and it has a little sparkle to it. Sometimes that worries people, but once you've colored it, you really can't tell. So if you're doing a guy card, that's not something you need to worry about. But really good weight paper. But like I said, if you have other paper laying around the house that you want to try, go ahead and do that. Please don't use a copy paper like what I'm coloring on top of right now. Printer paper, just basic paper. It's way too thin for alcohol markers. It will bleed right through and you will not be able to blend like I'm going to show you on the Cryogen. It's okay to practice with if that's what you have laying around, but when you want to use your Copics or your other alcohol markers, make sure you invest in a fairly good paper. It's going to make a big difference in the long run. We're just going to do her skin and her dress today. And the dress is a little tricky. It's not too hard. I like the way that it has been drawn because it has folds in it. And folds is one of the harder techniques for coloring. The more you do it, the better you get, I promise. So the more you practice coloring, the better you get, the easier it becomes. I've said that probably 5,000 times in the past 5 years, and people do realize that what I'm saying is true. So the more you do it, don't get frustrated the first, second, third time. Keep practicing, and I promise you will get it. Everything worth having or doing takes lots of practice. So if you're investing in the markers, take the time to invest in learning how to use them. And I promise it should be fun. Please don't be stressed when you're coloring. It's all about having fun when we're coloring. I mean, how great is it that you get to sit somewhere and color like when you were a child? So it should be lots of fun for you. So we're going to tackle the skin first, just because that's going to be a little bit shorter, and then we'll tackle the dress with the folds. So again, like I said, if I'm coloring this at home, I would leave the skin for the last, just because it's the lightest. But for purposes of the video, we're going to start with the skin first.